Hey guys, well, as you can tell, it's dark. I'm sitting out here in my truck. Thought I'd bring you along for a little late night repair. This is my 2012 Ram 3500. This is the truck that I use the most out in the woods, and I'm closing in on 200,000 miles on it. I've owned it almost since it was new, and it's been really reliable for me. I mentioned it before, but I work out in the woods. I do autonomous tree counting with drones, and so I drive a lot out on rock roads. Yesterday was a great example. I drove a little over 400 miles for the day, almost 15 billable hours, and a little over 200 miles on gravel roads. That's four-wheel drive through, mud and gravel and potholes and all that kind of stuff. It is rough on this truck. Because I drive in those kind of rough conditions, I do go through consumable items a lot. I believe I'm on my third set of front brakes, second set of rear brakes, 2 drive shaft carrier bearings, several U-joints, I think 5 front axle U-joints, and some ball joints and steering parts, things like that. Now, all those are consumable items. They just wear out. That's the nature of so many miles on gravel roads in four-wheel drive. I don't consider that any kind of an issue. But over the last week, I have run into something that is, on this truck, I would consider the first failure of a non-consumable item. So what's been happening is I turn the ignition switch to start, and no crank. The starter doesn't engage, nothing happens. Everything else works just fine. It's just, and the truck will remote start, no problem. But when I turn the key to the start position, it just won't crank unless I put some kind of diagonal pressure on the key. And that tells me that a contact inside of the ignition switch has failed. Now, Google being my sharpest tool in my toolbox, I spent a few minutes digging up information on that. This ignition switch is something that Chrysler calls the wireless ignition node. It is not just an ignition switch, it's something that actually communicates with the computer in the truck, and so I can't just replace it. If I replace it, it has to be reprogrammed by a dealer. Apparently it requires some kind of PIN code from the dealership. Now, I don't have a good any relationship with a mechanic at a dealership. This truck has never been to a dealership, so getting that PIN code is going to be essentially impossible, I think. Now, I always like to replace stuff in this truck if I can. I don't have any compunction against reaching into my pocket and putting new parts in, but it's super inconvenient. I would have to take this to a dealer somewhere, maybe in Portland, I don't know, and leave it there while they actually replace it and reprogram it. It's really difficult for me to find the time to do that. I essentially would burn a whole work day in a time when I'm really busy. So what I'm going to do tonight is attempt to repair it. Again, it's just mechanical contacts, and I assume that I'm going to be able to disassemble this switch and do some cleaning on the contacts, maybe some rubbing compound, a really light abrasive on it. I don't know. So I'm kind of going into this blind, but we're going to tear into it, see if we can make this thing work. So let me show you what's happening. The truck's running right now. We'll turn it off. So see, I'm turning the switch, no crank. But if I wiggle the switch, then the truck will start. So I am certain that I got some contacts that are, dirty, failing, etc., inside of here. Now, removal of this switch is not complicated. So I'm going to shine my light up here. It looks like 4 Torx screws here, and just 2 Phillips screws to remove this panel here. And I assume a wiring harness on the back. We'll get this thing removed and in the shop where we've got some good light.
Okay. 811-265, William, Nora, Tom Simlin.
Alright, we get this thing out of here. Pretty easy removal, just those 4 screws, and then in the back we got 2 connectors. One is an antenna, I believe, for the wireless, like a remote start, and the other is just a standard electrical connector. So let's bring this thing into the electronics workbench and pry it apart and see what we can do. You have to bear with me, there's a little bit of background noise here, but it shouldn't be too bad. In a nice warm spot in my shop here. Shuffle away a few of the other repair projects on the bench. See about cracking this thing open. Yes, I see some contacts in there. Probably a little difficult to see on the camera, but you can see that this barrel turns here and there's some contacts down in there that rub on this circuit board here. I'm gonna have to figure out how to take this thing apart. Looks like I'm gonna have to do some desoldering. Now, on close examination, I can see 5 things that I'm gonna have to desolder. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's it. And then this thing should slide right out of here. Now I've got my solder sucker right here. This should work just fine, but I also have some copper braid as well if that becomes necessary, but this should work just fine. So let's heat these solder joints up and remove the solder. Well, about 37 solder sucking operations later, there. Yeah, I can see some pretty good wear patterns in this contact assembly here. And there's a lot of dirt and dust down in there. No problem. I did get it off all in one piece, which is good. So we'll clean this up, maybe add some new spring tension to this. Polish this up here and put it all back together. So I have some 1000 grit sandpaper here. Basically, I'm just going to try and take any corrosion or dust off of these contacts. They seem pretty delicate, so I didn't want to use anything more coarse than that. I'm going to see if I can add just a little bit of tension to these. Not much, I don't want to break anything, but okay. Use the same sandpaper treatment here. I really see some like some wear marks on here. My idea is to just kind of remove those wear marks as best I can without really removing any of the copper material. There, I'm not sure how well the camera is going to show that up, but I've done this side, I haven't done this side, and the difference is really obvious. You know, all the wear marks are basically removed from here and they're not from there. I actually have a pretty good hope that this is going to solve my issue. I spent probably 2 or 3 minutes just very gently polishing that with the sandpaper. All the wear marks are removed. I feel pretty good about this. I'm fairly certain this is going to work, or it's going to at least postpone actually having to replace it with a new one. Let's heat the soldering iron back up and put this thing back together. It's not wetted perfectly. Oh, there we go. I know it's dark in here. Turn my radio off here. I'm just going to put a couple of screws in here. And then test the switch out. I don't know for sure, but I think this module takes care of remote start, probably door locking and unlocking, and then obviously the functions when the key is in here. So let's just try starting the truck up first. All that looks good. Oh man, that's way better. Key off works fine. Let's try locking and unlocking. Unlock, lock. Both of those work good. Let's try the remote start. Awesome. I believe that we have solved this. I guess I should try putting it in gear. I don't know if that... Yeah. Solved. All right. I'm gonna put these last 2 screws in here. Put this kick plate cover back on and take her for a test drive. I thought I'd pull out the camera on today's job and show you guys an example why I need this truck to be absolutely as reliable as possible. This job that I'm on today, I know it's snowing like crazy. Obviously I'm not flying the drones in this, but it looks like I got about half more hour of the snow like this, and then I've got a 2-hour window where it's actually supposed to be clear skies and I should be able to put the drones up in the air. So this stand is about 8 miles behind a locked gate. So the gate that I passed through to get in here was at 8 miles back. There's no cell service up here. Now, of course, I do carry a Garmin InReach, and I also have a VHF and UHF radios in my truck, so I could communicate that I needed help. However, the gate's locked down there. Not even really sure who I would call for help. I would almost certainly have to walk all the way back down there. And I mean, 7 or 8 miles is definitely within the realm of possibility for me walking down there, but it still leaves my truck up here. And you know, what if I was hurt, I couldn't walk that far? It just makes sense to make the truck absolutely as reliable as possible. So anyway, just thought I'd share this example with you. It's actually, I enjoy being out here in weather like this. I can kind of show you out there. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see in the camera just because of all the snow, but this is a fire salvage unit. Fire burned through here about a year ago, and they've salvaged part of it. And basically the satellite imagery didn't update soon enough for them to kind of determine what they'd already salvaged and what still was left out there that could be salvaged. And so my drone imagery supplements what might already be available with the satellite imagery. So that's what I'm doing up here today. Cross fingers that the weather forecast is right and that the weather radar is giving me good information. Hopefully here in about half an hour, I'll be able to put a drone up in the air. Well, I didn't want to just get one successful startup and say, hey, this problem has been fixed. So I've purposefully delayed uploading this video for about 2 months. Since then, I've driven the truck several thousand miles, had hundreds of successful startups, and didn't have one hint of issue with that wind module during the startup. So I can confidently say that we have definitely fixed this issue with the truck. Is it going to last as long as a new one? Well, probably not, but hey, the new one lasted 10 years and 200,000 miles. If this one lasts half that, I'd say it was well worth the effort. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hope this helps one of you that has the same issue, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.